WGHD2 Northport and W265CG Tuscaloosa. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app. A Town Square Media station.
Alabama 1st and 10 on the 12. Again, Houston. He's got a hole. He's over. Alabama touchdown.
I'm just wondering if your listeners know how good a football player you were. I can still see you playing that fullback, knocking those players out of the way. And I believe I could have run behind you.
Martin, I can remember when we came to summer and you were playing fullback up there, and I saw you in the weight room and watched you work out in the weight room. If you were strong enough to pick up the whole weight room. I wanted to pick you, and our running back coach didn't take the biggest mistake we ever made.
The Martin Houston Show with national championship winning fullback Martin Houston, giving you 1 hour of intense, hard-hitting analysis from an insider's perspective. It's time for the Martin Houston Show on your home for Alabama sports, Tide 100.9, and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome into the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, powered by MaX Sports. We are getting ready to kick off this wonderful Tuesday morning and get into a little bit of basketball still. Can Alabama be better next year, even without Brandon Miller? And what adjustments need to be made to this team to see that? We haven't covered Alabama's Pro Day yet, but we're going to dive a little deeper into that. Who would be a better fit for former Alabama quarterback Bryce Young, Carolina or Houston? Spring practice has been underway for over a week now. And, hey, we were really talking a lot about basketball this past week, so we haven't gotten to talk too much about the quarterback competition. Who's going to take the lead on this defense? And who are some of these true freshmen that could be impact players, from the words of Nick Saban himself, that have impressed him so far? But we are also joined by DC of DC Capstone Report. He's going to be in with us all day today as we talk about the things that happen across the Capstone. And we also have Aiden Dollins hitting all the right buttons and producing for us this morning. So let's get this Tuesday morning kicked off right. DC, how you doing this morning?
Oh, good morning, X. Doing great. Glad to be on the show with you. How are you?
Doing wonderful. Oh, as wonderful as I can for what I thought was going to be a Final Four run for this Alabama basketball team that came up short against San Diego State on Friday night. What are some of your opinions about how that game played out and what Alabama could have done differently?
Well, I think disappointed is the word. I don't think anyone can feel anything but disappointment. Alabama being the number one overall seed. If they lost at all, they were always going to lose to an underseeded team because they were the number one seed overall. But any loss is a stinging loss, and this, especially in the Sweet 16. I expected them to go farther, at least to the Final Four. It was my prediction to win it all. But, the things didn't go that way in this game. And I think turnovers and lack of rebounding in the second half really is what caused us to not be able to succeed in that game. X, in my opinion of it, just looking at the analysis that after watching it back and kind of studying a little bit, you're in the second half. You got about between 7 and 9 minutes left to go in the game. You got a 9-point lead with the ball, and I would have thought for sure that Alabama could sustain that and win the game. At that point, I thought we had the game won. But something I haven't said about this team all year, I've always talked about their maturity and how things they could do for a young team was even in challenging times. But I thought that with the up 9 with the ball, the pivotal part of that game was, they called timeout after we missed a shot, and then they came back. San Diego State came back and really focused hard on their defense. Hit 3. Trammell hit 3 shots there. And then we had 3 turnovers, and I think that was the turning point in the game. I think we lost our composure, lost our focus. We weren't running our offense, and didn't rebound, and their defense really bothered us. So, I mean, I don't want to take anything away from San Diego State. They are a good team, proving that by making it to the Final Four. A very great defensive team, a very mature, team that took some really good shots and made sure that they took open shots. And I think they forced us into taking some shots that were not the best shots, and that it showed in our lack of shooting percentage. So I think that's kind of the turning point of the game. Up 9 with the ball and couldn't put it away.
Agreed. I haven't heard anybody talk about how the maturity of this team. Just like it was kind of like you saw, some of the lack of experience at that point in this type of game, and it was. We talked about it yesterday for a second. It was kind of reminiscent of when Alabama in 2008 ran into a Florida team that was older, a lot more mature. Even though you could say to some degree Alabama's young talent was better, but they just didn't have the experience to deal with pressure in those type of moments. And this was the first time a lot of these guys were on this stage. Brandon Miller, even though we've talked about his maturity and what he's had to deal with off of the court the last couple months and things of that nature, but this was still a very young Alabama team at the end of the day. And you think, I was looking at the graphic when the game started, and every starter for San Diego State was a junior or a senior versus Alabama having JQ as a senior and Mark as a junior. Then you had 2 freshmen and a sophomore starting for Bama. Do you think just that physical maturity and that just being in college for 4+ years for some of these guys was a big difference?
Yeah, I think so. I think physical maturity, but I also think the mental aspect of the game. I think San Diego State being in that position before, they felt they should have won last year and made it. They were up by a large lead with 2 minutes left in the game, and lost out last year. So I think those players coming back another year felt they knew what it was like. They felt like they could win. They didn't get down when they got down by 9. They thought, hey, we can still win this game because the team did against us last year. I don't think Alabama had that mentality. I think they got up and they felt like it was just any other game, and it wasn't. There was a mode that we could have went in that last 7 minutes of the game with a 9-point lead, a mental mode that I think would have been better for us. I don't think we lacked that maturity to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And do you believe that Alabama could potentially be better next year without a Brandon Miller? And it's not a knock on Brandon. I think Brandon is the best basketball player that has ever set foot on the campus at Alabama. Yeah, especially from what I've seen growing up, which really is about 22 years of paying attention to Alabama basketball. But talking about, Bediako comes back, Sears is back, Bradley, Griffin, Burnett, Noah Clowney, if he comes back. And I think he might be the big key to how good this team can be next year if he comes back instead of going into the draft this year, because he's being mocked in that late teens, early 20s, as far as the first round of the NBA draft. But coming back another year, getting a little bigger, a little bit stronger, you could see him as a sophomore move up into potentially that lottery position. Could this team be better potentially next year with some of the young guys getting more experience, weight room, along with some of the freshmen coming in?
Oh yeah, I think it most definitely is. It's not, like you said, it's not a knock on Brandon Miller. He's one of the best basketball players I've ever seen play at University of Alabama. Did a great job, but in the day of the transfer portal, where you can add a piece when you see how your team's going to shake out. You can add a piece that could really help you down the road. I really believe that's the way Alabama was built. Great recruiting on the freshman end, but also adding a piece here and there for help in the transfer portal. And that's why so many teams are competitive today down the stretch. They got players that have added into the transfer portal that really add to what they have. And I think Alabama can do that. I think you're right on, spot on. Noah Clowney is the linchpin, if you will. If he doesn't go pro and he comes back another year, having him along with all the others that we got coming back, and adding a few, freshmen and maybe a transfer here or there, this Alabama team next year could be better than this year. I think the only thing that's left to be seen is who are we going to add as assistant coaches. Losing two good assistant coaches, one that was responsible for the defense, one that was responsible for the offense. And I think it'll be critical to get the right people in those positions. And I think Alabama has an advantage now because of going as far as we've been this year, farther than we've ever been as far as the number one seed overall in the NCAA tournament. All eyes are on Alabama. I think there's a lot of young, good, up-and-coming coaches that want to play in that type of system that has the analytics background that the coach Oates likes. So I don't think we have a problem getting good coaches, just getting the right fit to come in and take this team further. And if we do that and all those pieces fall in, then I think we have an opportunity to be a better team next year.
And what adjustments does this team have to make for us to see that happen? As far, excuse me, is outside of, well, with the adjustments that need to be made to help this team mature and grow, but also, do you know of any names that potentially could be on the horizon that Nate Oates is looking at to bring in?
No, I don't really know. I don't have a name in particular. I think he'll bring the best possible players available in, best coaches in. I think one thing Alabama's going to have to do is have multiple opportunities for people that can go to the score. In other words, not just one person that rely on to be the scoring option. I saw it in San Diego State. One thing they had was their leading scorer was averaging about 14, 15 points a game, but they had 5 other players that was 7 to 8 points a game, so it's kind of spread around. And that comes with maturity. It comes with a lot of players, seasoned veterans on a team that can give you 7 to 10 points a game and a lot of rebounding. Alabama's offense is usually best when it feeds off its defense. So I think playing up front, in-your-face defense up and down the court and let your offense flow from that, and having multiple people to be able to run your offense through other than just 1 or 2 people will get Alabama into a better frame next year. I think we went away from the high-low game in this game against San Diego State and started relying on our shooters to shoot. And I believe that Alabama needs to adjust a little more to a more pick and roll, high-low game, because I think we can do that. Bediako has come a long way. Nick Pringle, I think, is really a lot better than we utilize him this year. He's another piece to the puzzle if he sticks around and doesn't transfer out. He gets a little more playing time. He could really add some I think, cog in this Alabama offense and defense. I don't think he has to play the same 5 position. He could play a 4 position along with Bediako and really make a formidable defensive rim protectors and offense go through both of them.
Agreed. They definitely need to get more physical on the defensive end as well on the offensive end. JQ, I think we talked about yesterday, a mistake that was made was playing JQ a little bit longer than we should have and not putting Bradley in, especially when JQ was driving. A couple of those shots were something where JQ fades away from the contact, with Bradley driving and taking the contact could have been more opportunities at the free throw line down the stretch, which would have made that game tighter and not allowed San Diego State to build the lead when Alabama did have that comeback and got it within 2. That could have been a tie ball game, Bama with a lead in that type of situation. Was that a mistake Oates made by not playing Bradley more down the stretch? What are your opinions on getting the intentional foul once we got it within 2 with 45 seconds left?
Yeah, I think definitely it was a mistake. Hindsight's 20/20, as they say, and you can look back on it now. But in that game, I didn't think Quinley was effective. And I'm not a knock on Quinley. I mean, a lot of people are down on Quinley because the way he did, but I want to give San Diego State some credit. Mensah was a rim protector above all rim protectors in this game. I saw him do it in the Alabama game. I saw him do it in the game after that to make it to the Final Four against a very formidable, tall player inside. So he was easily in great positions to stop Quinley. And one thing Quinley does not do is he does not go in full force with the body. He's always going away or manipulating his body to go away because of his size. One thing Jaden Bradley does is he attacks the basket. And when Jaden Bradley's running the point and driving in, the big man on the other team often gets in foul trouble, as we've seen happen in several games that he's been involved in when he was starting. So I think we didn't play Bradley soon enough, didn't give him an opportunity to drive in that game, which I think possibly would have gotten their big man in more foul trouble. And I just think that not playing him more was not a good thing. It helped contribute to us getting further behind, because every time Bradley would have drove in, at least he'd had an opportunity to get to the basket, use his body, maybe draw a foul, and possibly make the basket as well. I don't think Quinley was able to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. But hey, we're going to continue this conversation on the other side of the break. Remember, you can join in on the show and call in on the Alabama One hotline at 205-342-9904. When we come back on the other side, we will finish up the basketball conversation and move into Alabama's Pro Day. Where do you see Bryce Young going? Which is the better fit? Because he's probably not going to be on the board after pick number 2. But we'll catch you on the other side.
From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, no active wrecks. Things looking pretty good on this Tuesday morning. Now, if you do see conditions, of course, give me a call. 205-886-8886. Business is good at Townsend Nissan. So good, they're hiring salespeople with a bonus of up to $5,000. See BJ or Kylan today. I'm Captain Ray.
From our home base right here in Birmingham, Alabama.
We are here treating patients from every generation.
Across the United States.
And from around the world.
As respected industry leaders,
we are here.
Working hard for you.
In an effort to provide you with
excellence in sports medicine.
Excellence in research and education.
And excellence in sports injury prevention.
We are here for you, aggressively pursuing
victory over injury.
Learn more at andrewsportsmedicine.com.
If you need insurance, like a good neighbor, State Farm agent Derek Daniel is there with auto, homeowners, and life insurance throughout the Tuscaloosa area, including Northport, Cottondale, Brookwood, and Vance. In a world that is ever-changing and busy, it is the focus of Derek Daniel State Farm to ease the stress that can come with insurance by putting an emphasis on personalized service. Contact Derek Daniel State Farm today at 758-3391 or stop by their office at 1214 McFarland Boulevard Northeast in Tuscaloosa.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Cooler today. The sky partly to mostly sunny. The high 64. Mostly fair tonight. The low down in the upper 30s at 39. And for tomorrow and Thursday, the sky sunny both days. The high tomorrow is 65. The high Thursday at 67. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 53 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You've probably seen their clothing around town on game days, but check out Christopher Mobley on the Strip. It's luxury game day apparel redefined. It's the only place in town where you can find Todd Hoops apparel. Clothing designed for the modern day entrepreneur, golf enthusiast, and athleisure fanatic. They've got Peter Millar, Fiore, Grayson, and Mizzen & Main. And if you haven't tried the Mizzen & Main dress shirts, you've got to. You can find them at 1410 University Boulevard on the Strip. Also, they've got a great e-commerce site at christophermobley.shop. So check out Christopher Mobley, luxury game day apparel redefined.
Scott Smith and Softmark Design, doing business for 17 plus years, specializing in graphic design services, commercial printing, promotional products, advertising specialties, and so much more. Basically, any and everything you would need to advertise, promote, and grow your business. Through strong partnerships, strong customer service, and creative ideas, they'll help you market and grow your business. Give Scott a call at 205-292-4680 or email scottis@comcast.net and visit them online at southmarkdesign.com.
Keep it locked into Tide 100.9 for more of the Martin Houston Show with Martin Houston and X's and O's Sports, Xavier Houston.
Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, powered by MaX Sports. We are joined by DC of DC Capstone Report. DC, we had a comment left by Virgil Williams. He was saying he's never been a fan of the one and done, and he loved watching Brandon play this year and wishes him well. But watching San Diego State, along with others that are upper class laden, it shows what experience does for you, and that's what has always made basketball great. What is your take on the one and done, and do you wish that it was either still you can go straight from high school, or you had to be in college a little bit longer?
Well, I've never been a fan of the one and done either. I just don't think it's one season is hard for any team. And for the individual, I think it's probably good. That was a theme years ago, right? You all remember the one and done, but that's the only way you could win the NCAA tournament. Kentucky was the top of that. They would win by one and dones, and they would get your Fab Five in there, and then they'd all be gone, that sort of thing. But that's kind of gone by the wayside now because they found out it's harder to build a team continuity during that time because you don't have the same team coming back next year or the core you need to come back next year. So we still have some one and done, but there's not a lot of team building of a bunch of one and dones anymore because it's not conducive to a program, building a program. But I think that we should enjoy what the time we have with Brandon Miller. He is a generational talent. I don't think we've had that kind of talent here before. And I agree with Virgil. We wish him well in the NBA, but hope that we can build a team with some players that are going to stick around for a while. I don't think we've given Mark Sears enough credit. I think Mark Sears, and if he sticks around and has a great year next year, that's 2 years. He played for his other team before he transferred in. But you look at this game, you look at his stat line. I think he had 16 points and 10 rebounds, a double-double. You don't talk about those in a loss, but I think he was critical, and he can be, paired with Jaden Bradley next year. Could be a formidable backcourt. And you got Noah Clowney, Bediako, and coming back, and if you want to go big with Pringle in the 4 spot, really could have a really good core coming back that would give us a little more maturity, both physically and mentally, going in next year. That's why I'm high on this team. I think the ones that are coming back, you can be high on. We love having Brandon Miller. We wish him well when he goes, but I don't think it's not a knock on him to say that we could be better next year with the ones we have coming back.
Agreed. We have Super Joe joining us on the Alabama One hotline. How you doing this morning, Super Joe?
Chilling, man.
Not much.
Yeah, but I gotta say that I'm gonna take my hat off to Alabama Crimson Tide basketball. They play. I mean, for them to get as far as we got, and San Diego State, just having them it could have been the strength of San Diego State might have just wanted more, but Bob's going going as far as we did. I don't really pay college, basketball as attention like I do to football, but I had to make an exception and not just say, we ain't got nothing to feel bad about. Like I said, Nails, he's got the fire for the people. He got the fire. He knows how to, he knows what to do, what it takes. And like I said, I do believe we're going to get a national championship in basketball. I'm very confident of that. It could be next year, and it could be year after next, But then, and I still have to, and I'm looking at this, though. I mean, let me ask you this, though, about the way things are. What are you hearing about on the offensive coordinators so far? What you hear so much on the offensive coordinator at Alabama?
As far as Tommy Rees, I've heard a lot of good things about him. The guys really seem to like him, enjoy him, and he's a younger guy, so he's relating very well with him. He's younger than I am, and I'm only 31, and so I think that'll work well with what Alabama's doing. A little breath of fresh air as far as what Nick Saban wants to do, and I think it's going to be an advantage to Alabama on the recruiting trail moving forward as well.
Yeah, I agree with X. I've heard the same thing, Super Joe, that he really relates well to the players. Players really love him. They love playing for him, and he's a typical college coach in that he relates to what the players are going through. It hasn't been that long until he's been through it as well. knows what they want and what they need, both mentally and from an athletic perspective as well. So I think everyone that I've heard coming out of these practices have really been impressed with his football acumen and what he knows and that sort of thing. But more than that, been impressed with how the players have related to him and really like playing for him.
That's good to know, because one thing I can say is, though, because I'm very confident in the defensive coordinator that we got, Kevin Steele, because he's been here before. He knows how precise Coach Saban is. So I'm very optimistic in that area. But he'll probably be around for about a year or two maybe. And then one thing about it, it's like assistant coaches, they kind of get out of it it's like musical chairs in Alabama. But but I guarantee you, as any coach, they'll have to change the system like Coach Saban do. I guarantee you their program will diminish. I guarantee you. I mean, it feels like it's common to Coach Saban, but it's like an extension cord to a lot of other coaches.
Right.
Hey, I agree. You got anything else for us, Super Joe?
No, man, I just appreciate you taking my call, Marty Marr, and roll time. I'll catch you later, man.
All right, man. Thank you for calling in.
Have a good one. All right, so we'll go ahead and transition this into Bama's Pro Day. Did you get to catch any of it, DC? Heard anything about it as far as what team? Of course, we know Bryce Young, and we'll get into his Pro Day as a whole and how he looked. But for some of the other guys, what was some of the news that you heard about where they're sitting and who's on the rise as far as the other group outside of Bryce, Will, Brian Branch, Jordan Battle, guys like that?
Yeah, I got to catch all the Pro Day, got to see every bit of it. There's a big buzz here in Tuscaloosa to have all the NFL executives from all the teams here in Tuscaloosa and all the the big names and prognosticating and that sort of thing. You see them in the downtown Tuscaloosa. You know that they're here for a reason, and most people realize it was to come to see Bryce Young, and I tell you, Bryce Young may have gotten them here, but there were some other people that turned some heads, and what I'm hearing is that Jahmyr Gibbs really made an impression on a lot of people. It's one thing to watch him on television and watch him on tape, but when you see him in person and see the snap and the quickness and the speed that he has, and his catching, route running ability and ball catching ability, he really jumps off the page at you when you see him in person. And I think he may have helped his draft stock. People said that he really challenged. I think Bijan Robinson is the best running back in this particular draft, especially with his pass catching ability and route running ability and ability to run the ball on special teams, run the ball back. So I think he's the player that really turned some heads and made some people think a little bit, may have improved his draft stock. I think some of our other defensive players, also helped themselves in this as well. Will not making any doing any workouts, just being there to support his teammates. But a lot of the other lesser known players that are in the draft, like you mentioned, Brian Branch and Battle, all showed their physical specimens and what they could do in the drills. What I heard that the assistant coaches who ran the drills came off really impressed because they had run the drills at similar schools at Pro Days, before, and they were just really impressed with Alabama's players running the drills. And one name that everybody seemed to be impressed with was a 10-year veteran, DJ Fluker, and what he had done to his body and getting himself in a position to try to get back on the field. So I think he bruised a couple of the assistant coaches' sternum when he put his hands on them in those lineman drills. So that was fun to see as well.
Yeah, and as far as DJ's a guy that I've actually known since high school. Just from running, I played in the spring game against him going into our senior year, and then I got to meet him at a couple of Alabama games that fall, man. And he was a massive dude, when we were 17, 18 years old. But then to turn around and see him now in his 30s and just see how he has absolutely changed his body type and gotten back into shape, it'll be interesting to see if he gets another opportunity. But another offensive lineman that I heard really has been impressing people is Tyler Steen, and his versatility. Did you kind of get that same feel at Pro Day about what he's able to do and how teams will potentially use him? Because he's like the offensive lineman version of a Brian Branch, where you can kind of move him all over and just plug and play him, and he'll be successful wherever that is.
Yeah, most definitely. That's exactly what I heard coming out. They were really impressed with his hand placement, the technical aspect of the game. He seems to have the head game down, knowing what the plays are, knowing how to execute them. But the technical aspect of hand placement, foot placement, quickness along the line, and all of that with the ability to play each and every position on the line as well was really what people talked about coming away from Tyler Steen. So I think he improved his draft stock as well on the offensive line. I think he impressed a lot of the coaches.
And two guys that are kind of getting lost in the shuffle that I want to talk about, I haven't heard much about them, is Cameron Latou and Byron Young. What are some of the scouts' thoughts on those two guys? Cam having been a defensive end when he arrived at Alabama, and then getting to see him on the field as a tight end the last couple of years. And, Byron Young is kind of I feel like the guy that kind of gets lost in the shuffle, even though he had a really good senior year.
Yeah, I think Byron Young was talked about by several of the scouts. What I heard was that he was a little under the radar, and when they got there, they didn't realize that he was as big as he was, or as fast as he was, or he had the technique that he had. So I think he definitely improved his draft stock in a lot of the players' eyes. And the one thing I heard about Cameron Latou is, physical, athletic specimen. He fits the mold of what the NFL is looking for these days in the tight end. Being able to block on the line for the running game, as well as getting out and helping in pass protection when you keep everybody in, and as well as getting out and catching the ball in space. So I think he did a really good job for himself as well.
Oh, and of course, one guy that you can't forget to talk about before we move on to Bryce is Eli Ricks. Heard his 40 time was very impressive. This was a guy that had a lot of first-round buzz coming into the season, and then dealing with injuries and getting adjusted to a new situation and scheme. We didn't get to see a lot of him on the field. But, this guy's a physical freak and can do a lot of things. And are scouts still really high on him, even though we didn't get to see a lot of him on the field this past year?
Well, I think it was interesting. What I heard, it's kind of like his play or his season had been at Alabama, kind of up and down. Some of the scouts are really high on him, and some of the scouts are not as impressed with him. And I think it had to do with his workout as well, because it was a kind of a microcosm of his career. Great and wonderful at burst in times, and then not good at times. There was no middle ground there. For example, I think they were so impressed with his 40 time, but I think in some of the agility drills, some of the on-field coaches were frustrated with his inability to, complete those drills or do them to perfection and take instruction, that sort of thing. So he's kind of up and down. I think it's hot and cold with him. Not really sure where he stands. It just depends on the need and the team that's really likes him, where he'll go in the draft.
Could he potentially be a guy that moves to safety? Because you're talking about his agility and stuff. He's got great straight line speed, but if that's an issue, maybe a move to safety would be better fit for him.
Very much so, and also his career might depend on which team picks him. He could get with a team, and he might be that player that just finally light goes off with the right people around him and the right scheme, right position coach, and really could blossom into a wonderful player. But I think it's just I think the scouts are seeing the same way. He could be a boom or he could be a bust. There's really no middle ground in picking Eli Ricks.
Okay. And as we move on, of course, Bryce Young was the main attraction. Didn't work out at the pro day. And so this was the first time anybody got to see him. Now, he didn't do any of the speed tests, any of the agility, stuff like that. It was a come look at me throw, come see my pocket presence and how I move and things of that nature. And that was really highlighted by all of the sports news and media outlets. But did he get his height and weight checked again at the start of this?
I did not see that he did. It's possible he did that off camera, but But let's just be honest. Bryce Young couldn't do anything, I don't think, in this pro day physically to help himself. It could just go ahead and confirm what everybody already knows about him, what they've seen on tape already. He could have done something to hurt himself, but he didn't. He made every throw that he needed to make and did it well. But what I heard from coming away from it, from scouts, from commentators, and from NFL personnel that were there, everyone were impressed with his ability when he spoke with the team, in meetings, in personal conversations, and sideline conversations. He said the right things. He had the right football IQ. He had the right honesty, integrity, character, everything you want to talk about. He had it, and he had the it factor off the field. And as every commentator that said anything about it said, "Hey, just turn on the tape. If you think he's too short, turn on the tape and watch him make throws against players who are the best players in college football in the SEC." Compare apples to apples. Compare these other quarterbacks to who they played against, and watch him make the throws from the pocket. Watch him make throws on the run. So I don't think he did anything to hurt himself. I think he helped himself with some of the teams. But here, let's be honest. He's not going to go. I think it's either two teams: Carolina Panthers or the Houston Texans. I don't think he's going past those two. So, and will Carolina pick him number one, or will Houston Texans get him? I think that's the question about Bryce Young, and he didn't do anything himself to hurt himself. If anything, I think he made it harder for Carolina Panthers not to choose him. I really think the ownership at Carolina wants him. I really think the coach at Carolina wants C.J. Stroud, and we'll see how that pans out. And if they take C.J. Stroud, I think he goes to the Houston Texans. I think D'Amico Ryans has come out already and said the height doesn't bother him at all. He's a ball player. All you got to do is turn the tape on and see it. So, I think Bryce Young is going to be fine. In my personal opinion, Carolina's got the best offensive line. That's where I'd want to go and play behind in my NFL career. Just because I want to be healthy and have opportunity to make plays and don't be running for your life at Texas. Not to say that Texas can't improve and maybe get there at some point, but right now, I think Carolina has done everything they can in the offseason with their offensive line to put whoever they draft in the best position to succeed. And I think that's where Bryce Young would fit in best, in my opinion.
Okay, and so when looking at that between Carolina and Houston, you pick Carolina because of the offensive line and what they can provide for them there. But Carolina lost DJ Moore. They lost their first round pick next year. I think their second round pick next year as well. I know they gave up three or four picks, including DJ Moore, to move up. And in this situation, Houston has 13 picks this year. You're going to get another first round pick again this year. You get the number 34 pick in the draft. So that's 3 picks within the top 35. That's going to give you a lot, or no, the 33rd pick because Miami forfeited a pick. So essentially, yeah, that's an amazing stock. And then you have potentially John Mechie, who, God willing, he's healthy and able to come back and play ball again. So that's a comfort level already there. And then, of course, having D'Amico, a former Bama guy, that is really, in my opinion, not saying he's not going to put Bryce out there early, but he's going to be patient with Bryce and let him grow a little bit different versus potentially having a head coach that doesn't want you. And we saw how that kind of worked with Tua. For his first couple of years, Brian Flores wanted Justin Herbert and really made it known that Tua wasn't his guy. So even with the better offensive line as of today, with those early draft picks, a coach that wants you, a wide receiver that you're comfortable with, is Houston not a better fit for Bryce?
No, I can see you make the argument for that. When you say all those things, I agree that you can see the argument for that. My opinion, though, is that I think that Houston is going to want to try to play Bryce because in the early going, because I think they put all their eggs in his basket and get him the fans are going to expect him to play. And I just feel like if you're going to play early, Carolina would be the best place for you to play. And you got some, got Bradley Bozeman on the team there, Alabama grad, knows Bryce Young, knows what he brings to the table. And I think you've seen what Jalen Hurts has done with a very, mature offensive line at Philadelphia, and I think Bryce could do the same thing at Carolina. That's the only reason I would pick Carolina. When I say that the coach wants the other player, that's just that's who he wants. But I don't think Frank Reich is a guy that's gonna. I don't want to put him in the same category as what happened to Tua. I really believe that if they come to an agreement that Bryce is their guy, from everything I heard coming away from Pro Day was Frank Reich was impressed with him, of his acumen of the game, of his character, of his talking, and everything he talked to him. And I think Frank Reich is just he's got stuck on that prototypical 6'3", 6'5" quarterback in the pocket, and that's what he likes about C.J. Stroud. I don't think he dislikes Bryce Young. I just think he has a preference for C.J. Stroud. I don't think it'd be another Tua situation like it was in Miami if he goes to Carolina. That's why I'm leaning toward Carolina.
Hey, and I respect that. Right, we're going to go ahead and get to break, and when we come back on the other side, we're going to hit spring practice underway. Remember, you can join in on the call on the Alabama One hotline at 205-342-9904.
This is a Town Square Media Tide 100.9 Sports Update.
I'm Kim Rankin with your Tide Sports Update. The Alabama softball team ranked number 16 in this week's D1 softball rankings. Alabama quarterback commit Julian Sayin has been invited to the Elite 11 finals.
This has been a Town Square Media Tide 100.9 Sports Update. Run it again! For more info on these stories and more, download the Tide 100.9 app.
The children's music and dance teacher who couldn't cha-cha. I was always on my feet. It was just so painful. Elisa couldn't let her students down. So she stepped up and went to the Good Feet store for personally fitted arch supports. I would work an entire day and my feet didn't hurt at the end of the day. That was when I knew, wow, these are different. But the really good part, it's good to be dancing together again. Stop by or schedule your free fitting at goodfeet.com.
If you need insurance, like a good neighbor, State Farm agent Derek Daniel is there with auto, homeowners, and life insurance throughout the Tuscaloosa area, including Northport, Cottondale, Brookwood, and Vance. In a world that is ever-changing and busy, it is the focus of Derek Daniel State Farm to ease the stress that can come with insurance by putting an emphasis on personalized service. Contact Derek Daniel State Farm today at 758-3391 or stop by their office at 1214 McFarland Boulevard Northeast in Tuscaloosa.
Tide 100.9 Traffic.
From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, no active wrecks. Things looking pretty good on this Tuesday morning. Now, if you do see conditions, of course, give me a call. 205-886-8886. Business is good at Townsend Nissan. So good, they're hiring salespeople with a bonus of up to $5,000. See BJ or Kylan today. I'm Captain Ray.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Coming up starting at 2 o'clock, we'll feature Mike Detillier. WWL, the Big 870. We'll recap NFL Pro Day at the University of Alabama. We'll look ahead to the NFL Draft. We'll recap a lot of different angles with him. Starting at 2 o'clock here on Tide 100.9, the home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest running sports program in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back to the Martin Houston Show, the sound of Bama sports. Your show, your team, on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show. Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier. We are joined by DC of DC Capstone Report. DC, spring practice has been underway for over a week now, and we really haven't talked much about it. But we've heard nothing but good things so far. as far as competition and guys getting at it. Unfortunately, you don't have Dallas Turner and Deontay Lawson in the spring. Those are the two names that I've heard so far is no longer or not being able to compete this spring. But that opens some doors along with the quarterback competition, and yeah, I think it can make things more exciting, especially for that middle linebacker spot and finding out who's going to be that rotational guy on the edge with Chris Braswell taking over for Will Anderson. And of course, we know Dallas will be the guy when he comes back. But middle linebacker is wide open. We saw Deontay Lawson at the end of last year. We saw Henry Toto. Of course, he's gone. Moody is gone as well. Who do you see stepping up in those two spots?
Yeah, well, I think it's great, great opportunities now. And I hate to see the players out, but great opportunities for people to step up. Well, just to mention first that outside position, one guy to look at is that Quindarius Robinson. I mean, I think he's a senior, waited his turn, and I think he could be a guy that gets some playing time in there with Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell. Of course, then you got Jeremiah Alexander on there as well. But I think the two that's going to benefit from that I know in the middle linebacker position will be the transfer Tresman Marshall coming in from Georgia, and then you got the junior college player Justin Jefferson. Those two newcomers will benefit the most from the playing time and the reps in spring practice with Deontay Lawson out. So I look for those two to vie for some playing time, and I think they could really make a flash on the scene and really make a difference there. One of those guys will probably vie for starting position alongside Deontay Lawson. The other one should get a lot of playing time, I think, in a rotation. So I think it'd be great to watch. So, Tresman Marshall and Justin Jefferson, see what they can do with that middle linebacker position.
I agree, and I think the dark horse from that middle linebacker spot that a lot of people haven't talked about, but highly recruited kid going into his junior year, and that's Kendrick Blackshire. He's a little old school. When you look at him, it kind of reminds you of the Rolando McClain, Dante Hightower days at that inside spot, which in today's game, you kind of wonder if a guy can be that size and still be successful. But then you look at teams when you have to play with these physical teams like a Georgia, whatever, you want that big middle linebacker that's a thumper. And we've kind of gotten away from that. But I think he can end up being the dark horse there. And then, of course, we know Keon Keeley, he'll arrive on campus this summer, and he'll definitely vie for some playing time with his length and his athleticism at this age. But I do think it opens the doors for, as you said, Quindarius Robinson and maybe Jeremiah Klein. Depends, and it's going to be interesting. Have you been to any practices or not?
I have not to get to go see any practices. I've just been having people who've been there talk to me, but I haven't been able to see it with my own eyes.
Do you know where they're playing Clay Rudolph?
I do not. I don't know exactly where he hadn't heard whether he's playing on the line or playing at the outside. I hadn't heard.
Okay. See, I think he's going to be an interesting guy depending on where they decide to stick him. And, he ends up being a Rashawn Evans and might start off on the edge and then moves inside. I think he'll be an interesting player to watch as well. But, of course, the quarterback position, that's what everybody wants to talk about. That's what everybody wants to know. I feel like people have drawn their line. You're either a Todd Simpson guy or you're a Jalen Milroe guy. What have you heard about how the two of them have looked so far?
Really heard that, Jalen Milroe's looked really good. He's done everything he's been called on, asked to do. I think he's come back with a lot of confidence. Knows the offense, of course. Knows what they want to do, what they're trying to do. But both of them have looked sharp as well, because I think Ty Simpson is really kind of taken up with Coach Reese. When I say that, I mean he's studied what he's done in other places and came in with the mentality that he was going to adopt that system, that mentality that Coach Reese had, to try to do the best he can to maximize his playing time. So both of them have been really getting some good reviews. I think it's just what you just said. You're either one or the other. I mean, it's just who knows who's going to be the starting quarterback, but both of them are doing some great things in practice so far.
And we've kind of heard, in a lot of these situations, you've seen Coach Saban kind of delay naming a starter or whatever. But do you think that this situation feels a little different? Because I've heard rumors that if Ty's not the guy, he might leave. And my dad has heard rumors that if Jalen's not the guy, he's going to leave. Do you think Coach Saban will name a guy leaving spring ball?
I don't think so. It's never been his. It's not been his. My experience for him to do that in the past. I think that's another. It's another thing that whoever doesn't get it, it's a possibility they'll transfer out. But in my opinion, I think that both players are going to be given an opportunity to win the job at spring. But I expect it to go on into the summer practices just like it did when the last time we had a full quarterback competition. I think was between Blake Barnett and Jalen Hurts in a time where you really didn't know who was going to be the starter, what was going to happen, and that went on into well into the summer practices, and even up before the first game, we didn't know who was going to start, and then one started, and then one won the job. So I think it's that close with Ty Simpson and Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like it's going to be really tight down the stretch. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes. And real quick, how has Dylan Lonergan and Eli Holsting looked? From what
I think Lonergan has looked good. I think he's coming off of an injury, so he's been a little slow to progress. But Holstein is everything that he's been billed as. He has all the skills, all the athleticism, can make every throw. Just need some experience, and I think both of them will do really good as well. Both of them are two good pickups.
And as far as the other impact freshmen, heard a lot about Justice Haynes and a lot about Caleb Downs and what they've been able to do so far. They've been the two guys that have stood out the most from the freshman class. But have you heard? You can speak about them, but also have you heard about any of the young guys really stepping up and showing what they can do?
No, I think those are the two names that I've heard the buzz about most. Caleb Downs is the real deal. He's come in and could potentially start, I believe, at one of the defensive backfields, either star or dime. Justice Haynes took advantage of the all-season workouts. He came in tip-top shape. As a matter of fact, was on fire. What I heard was at the top of every fourth quarter program, and his ability to run the ball and the strength that he has to turn in the legs and gain yardage after contact has really been impressive to the coaches and people who've been watching.
Nice. Have you heard anything about where guys are lining up, like along the offensive line, wide receiver, who's kind of running with the ones right now?
I hear, and the wide receivers, I hear the name Malik Benson jumping off every person's lips that I talk to. And he was one of the ones catching balls at Pro Day. If that doesn't tell you something about his ability and what the confidence people have in that should help you out there. But I hear he's been jumping off the page of wide receiver. It's going to be hard to keep him off of one of the starting positions, even though you got veterans coming back like Ja'Cory Brooks and Burton. Malik Benson's really turning some heads out there at practice right now, and seems to be just a plug-and-play guy. I hear people talking to him about, he's like a Jerry Jeudy, like a Devontae Smith when he catches, like a Jerry Jeudy when he's in his stature and speed. So, that would be a great combination to have, someone you can count on as a wide receiver, especially for young quarterbacks to get the ball out to.
That is very high praise coming from those two guys, both of them. Biletnikoff winners and of course Smitty winning the Heisman. So that's very high praise for him. But hey, DC, let everybody know where they can find you. Appreciate you being on this Tuesday.
Yeah, we can find me at DCCapstoneReport.com, DC Capstone Report Facebook page. You can catch us on Twitter at DavidCott50 and check out Lance's other sites, RollTideBama.com and FreelancePictures.com. Check out my sponsor, Karen Cottingham, Realtor here in Tuscaloosa. You can call her at 205-887-4008 for all your real estate needs with the Williams Group here at Keller Williams.
Hey, that is DC Capstone Report. I am Xavier Houston. We had $8 pressing all the right buttons. We appreciate you all tuning in on this Tuesday morning. We will catch you tomorrow, same time. Have a blessed day.
Thanks. Have a great day and roll tide.
A celebration to last throughout the years. Tide 100.9 traffic.
From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, we have a single vehicle accident on 69 near Macedonia United Methodist Church. Car apparently lost control, went off the roadway, is up in the trees. If you see other conditions, please give me a call. Business is good at Townsend Nissan, so good they're hiring salespeople with a bonus of up to $5,000. See BJ or Kylan today. I'm Captain Ray.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Tuesday morning. A new lawsuit could be filed as early as today against the city of Tuscaloosa by 1225 gastropub owner Jay Jarrett. That's after a federal court denied Jarrett's first lawsuit claiming racism in code enforcement by the city because the bar is minority owned. Jarrett's attorneys announced another suit is being filed possibly today. Jarrett voluntarily revoked the initial suit, and attorneys removed federal components so the suit could be heard in Tuscaloosa County Court. Don Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
If you need insurance, like a good neighbor, State Farm agent Derek Daniel is there with auto, homeowners, and life insurance throughout the Tuscaloosa area, including Northport, Cottondale, Brookwood, and Vance. In a world that is ever-changing and busy, it is the focus of Derek Daniel State Farm to ease the stress that can come with insurance by putting an emphasis on personalized service. Contact Derek Daniel State Farm today at 758-3391 or stop by their office at 1214 McFarland Boulevard Northeast in Tuscaloosa.
You've probably seen their clothing around town on game days, but check out Christopher Mobley on the Strip. It's luxury game day apparel redefined. It's the only place in town where you can find Todd Hoops apparel, clothing designed for the modern day entrepreneur, golf enthusiast, and athleisure fanatic. They've got Peter Millar, Fiore, Grayson, and Mizzen+Main. And if you haven't tried the Mizzen+Main dress shirts, you've got to. You can find them at 1410 University Boulevard on the Strip. Also, they've got a great e-commerce site at christophermobley.shop. So check out Christopher Mobley, luxury game day apparel redefined.
Hello, this is Martin Houston with the Martin Houston Show, and I want to tell you about Tuscaloosa Custom Curbing. If you're looking for a way to add value to your home, make your flower beds pop, make your landscaping stand out from your neighbors, then Tuscaloosa Custom Curbing can help you do just that. They have numerous styles, but they feature the Moroccan Stone Curb Series, which includes 4 great styles and unlimited color choices. That's Tuscaloosa Custom Curbing. They are the one that can help you stand out from your neighbors. Tuscaloosa Custom Curbing, 205-331-6823. You may also find yourself with the need for a custom size stone or custom shaped stone. Then Tuscaloosa Custom Curbing can help with that as well. Paul Fuller and his team are waiting on your call right now for that free quote. And if you tell them that Martin Houston with the Martin Houston Show told you to stop by, you'll get a big discount. So call Tuscaloosa Custom Curbing at 205-331-6823 or visit them online at Tuscaloosa Custom Curbing, LLC.
It's time for the Martin Houston Show. With the same hard-hitting, no-nonsense approach in which he played the game, Martin will take you inside the locker room, down on the field, and across the goal line with his in-depth analysis. Thank you for listening to the Martin Houston Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Hey, this is Reagan, owner of R&R Cigars, the Cigar Mansion in downtown Tuscaloosa, located at 2703 6th Street across from the Home 2 Suites. Come down to R&R and see why we're the ultimate cigar and bourbon experience. With over 165 bourbons and 5 private barrels, our selection of bourbon is unmatched. We have the best cocktails around and our cigar selection is legendary. Our lounge and service are world-class. Come and experience the luxury of the mansion and see why it's a world-renowned cigar and spirits destination.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, we have a single vehicle accident on 69 near Macedonia United Methodist Church. Car apparently lost control, went off the roadway, is up in the trees. If you see other conditions, please give me a call. Business is good at Townsend Nissan, so good they're hiring salespeople with a bonus of up to $5,000. See BJ or Kylan today. I'm Captain Ray.
Tide 100.